This is going to be an interesting topic because it's two pieces, right? And I think you'll see why one thing is happening because of what happened prior to that. There is a ConsenSys lawsuit revealing that JPMorgan owns critical Ethereum infrastructure. A group of 35 shareholders of Ethereum giant ConsenSys AG have filed for a special audit of a 2020 deal that saw JPMorgan Chase acquire an influential stake in two of its flagship products. The former employees, who represent more than half of all CAG holders, want an investigation into the matter, which allegedly saw, quote, fundamental intellectual property and subsidiaries illegally transferred from CAG into a new entity, ConsenSys Software Incorporated. This was in exchange for a 10% stake in the new entity and a $39 million loan by ConsenSys chief and Ethereum billionaire Joseph Lubin, according to a press release issued Wednesday. The deal, known within CAG as Project North Star, resulted in financial institutions JPMorgan winning a significant slice in the company's lucrative intellectual property, specifically MetaMask and Infura. Both crypto wallet MetaMask and node network Infura persist as arguably the Ethereum ecosystem's most critical infrastructure. Turns out Wall Street fat cats JPMorgan directly profits from and even controls that infrastructure. Not exactly what Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned when he embedded Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks in Bitcoin's Genesis block. Of course, if we're talking about Ethereum here, we're not talking about Bitcoin. I don't think that there's ever been a question that Ethereum's fundamentals do not align with Bitcoin, never have and never will. And all it really appears to end up being turned into is some sort of huge money laundering scheme that's been going on between, put on the tinfoil hat, right? Between large exchange owners, large traditional financial institutions, and governments. It is what it is. Indeed, Project North Star has proven incredibly lucrative for CSI shareholders like JPMorgan. A year after the transaction, the IP in question was used to raise funds for CSI at a valuation of $3 billion US. After a current round, the ConsenSys spinoff CSI is expected to hit $7 billion. Original CAG insiders reckon the deal was, quote, to the detriment of the minority shareholders of CAG and to the benefit of Joseph Lubin personally, end quote. Ethereum co-founder Lubin is the majority shareholder of CAG and CSI. Forbes values Lubin's fortune between $1 and $5 billion US. The former ConsenSys employees are invoking an article of the Swiss Code of Obligations, which, if successful, may render the deal void. At the time of transaction, both Lubin and board member Frithjof Weinert, were directors of both CAG and CSI. Unfortunately, under Swiss and US law, dual representation in a situation like this is not allowed. The shareholders are also flagging the fact that required annual shareholder meetings had to be delayed by 2 years, meaning that they had no idea the illegal deal had ever happened. Because these meetings never took place, Weinert was supposedly never officially re-elected to the company's board, and so was in no position to authorize Project North Star. In lieu of these shareholder meetings, Lubin hosted an informal informational event in late 2021 at which CAG staff were informed their numbers would be slashed from 160 to 30 by the end of the year. This, coupled with the movement of lucrative assets, MetaMask and Infura, from CAG to CSI, meant a de facto liquidation of CAG without the required consent of a shareholder meeting, according to the shareholders' press release. This was, plaintiffs say, in breach of the directors' duty to act in the company's interests, considering it left shareholders holding equity in a company that didn't actually own that much. The shareholders asked anybody who holds or was promised CAG shares to contact them, vowed to, quote, help all those who have been harmed, end quote, and said they're ready for upcoming court battles. For what it's worth, the ConsenSys Mesh CAG spokesperson told CoinDesk the company refutes the details the shareholders press release, saying, quote, the business fundamentals and operating environment are entirely different today than at the time of the transaction. Though the group would like to apply a valuation that might be achieved today to a set of projects that were pre-monetization during the darkest days of COVID when the transaction took place. They also said, I mean, isn't it funny that it's always like, let's just always use COVID as an excuse. We did something that is ethically questionable, but that was during COVID and it was pre-monetization. Don't worry about it. You know, it's fine. They also said CAG was prepared to immediately file further actions once a Swiss auditor responded to the case. That is pretty funny. And if you want to throw on a huge old tinfoil hat, back that up with this. So we have a bunch of craziness happening here where we have large shareholders like JPMorgan owning a bunch of the infrastructure for Ethereum. Today's sponsor is BT Miners. BT Miners has been a longtime sponsor of the channel and a proven reliable source for ASIC miners. If you're looking to purchase ASICs hardware from Bitcoin to Dogecoin miners, they are available for purchase on bt-miners.com. BT Miners is a trusted source by both ASICminervalue.com and CryptoMiner.com. Follow the affiliate link in the description and tell them SOT sent you to support the channel. And then you pop into the very next article today, just released. Ethereum developers are considering raising the max validator limit from 32 to 2048 Ethereum. This is nutty, guys. Ethereum's core developers are considering a proposal that suggests raising the maximum validator balance from the current 32 Ether to 2048 Ether per validator. This proposal concerns an increase in the maximum validator stake while the minimum would remain at 32. So don't worry, if you can only afford 32, you're going to still be able to do 32. Here's where things get interesting though. Right? It gets interesting. It gets interesting when we start talking about decentralization of the network itself, right? And thanks for the super chat, Theodore. As it stands, Ethereum validators are subject to an effective balance cap set at both the minimum and maximum of 32 ETH. This forces large-scale staking operations to spin up multiple validators if they want to earn yield on any amount greater than this. Of course, what that means is the more validators, the more robust the network, meaning more decentralization, even though it's technically controlled by large individuals, right? Large validators, like it still helps with the actual network decentralization. So you have more robust infrastructure, right? If you allow people to move that up, you have less robust infrastructure. That being said, unsurprisingly, this practice has led to a big increase in the number of validators. There are currently 600,000 active validators and an additional 90,000 awaiting activation in the queue. Michael Neuter, an Ethereum Foundation researcher and key proponent of the proposed change, made the case for this increase during the most recent Ethereum core developer consensus meeting held Friday. He said that while the current validator cap promotes decentralization, it inadvertently leads to an inflation of the validator set size. Neuter, I feel like that's probably not pronounced correctly. He explained that raising the cap would slow down the expansion of the active validator set, ultimately improving the network's efficiency in terms of achieving finality within a single Ethereum slot. I believe, yeah, so that's not linked here. Yeah, because that finality fail. Well, that's a different term of finality than what they linked that article to. Okay. The proposed increased cap will also introduce the possibility of auto compounding validator rewards, according to Neuter. Should I say Nader? That sounds wrong too. At the present, rewards earned beyond the 32 ETH cap must be redirected elsewhere to generate staking yield. If the cap were to be lifted and raised, these rewards could immediately be compounded, providing validators with an effective means to earn more from their ETH from their staked ETH. Moreover, the proposed claims to address the operational concerns of larger node operators, including exchanges like Coinbase, which currently maintain tens of thousands of validators due to the existing 32 ETH cap per validator. Raising the maximum effective validator balance would allow such operators to manage fewer but higher staked validators, which could potentially translate into less complexity. He did warn, however, of the associated risks, including potentially higher penalties for accidental double attestations or proposals, also known as slashing, which we talked about as a problem. Imagine you have your ETH staked in like Lido or Coinbase or something like that, and then they get in trouble with slashing. It's going to be pretty terrible. This proposal continues to be under debate among the core developers, who have agreed to further discuss the implementation details of this proposal on social platforms such as ETH Magicians and Discord. What it sounds like to me at the end of the day is really Ethereum is struggling to scale, right? And we've known this for a long time. I think with what was supposed to be coming with sharding, which is still not here, right? Was that, and what was supposed to come along with the move to proof of stake was a scalability and a reduction of fees, neither of which have actually happened. The only thing that's really happened is that we have seen a consolidation of the participants into a few of the very rich and less participation within the community from the miner perspective. And we're seeing less centralization or less decentralization as well, or more centralization, however you want to frame that. It's really, Ethereum has been extremely disappointing to me for quite some time, but it is kind of the de facto go-to for DeFi still, right? Because it's almost like somebody that starts drinking Coca-Cola and never switches to Pepsi, right? It just is the way it is. Even though there could be better solutions out there, there are even proof of work solutions out there that are arguably better. But the thing is everybody's accustomed to the current status quo with Uniswap, etc. We'll have to see if that continues though, right? Giants have fallen in the past. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.